we're on this awesome podcast right now. Imagine for a minute if I said, "Hey, TJ, my phone is ringing. I got to take this call real quick," and I'm taking a call or I'm texting somebody while I'm on a podcast with you. You'd be like, "Brian, what the heck are we doing here? We're on a podcast, man." But yet we do that all the time, and we're with people.
Hey there, and welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. It was my pleasure and privilege to interview Brian Gottlieb.
You already know. My passion and my mission to help you unleash your greatness within. My heart goes out to the underdogs that's on their way. If you think you can go from good to great, okay, let's motivate. GreatnessWithin.com. TJ Hoisington. GreatnessWithin.com. Oh, if you dreaming it, believe in it, work hard for it, and in the process serve others in a positive way. Think you can do it.
You see, Brian has written this new book titled Beyond the Hammer, a fresh approach to leadership, culture, and building high-performance teams. And let me tell you something. Wow, Brian not only has great energy, and you're going to find this motivational, he's got so many great nuggets he lays out all throughout this interview. Specific items and things and strategies that you can use to immediately become a more effective leader. You see, Brian in 2009 started a company out of the garage of his home with a folding table that grew into employees of over 600 people and neared over the years of producing almost $1 billion. And I tell you what, he's got ideas, he's got experience. You're gonna wanna listen up to Brian as he walks through different ideas and strategies that can help you create a culture that's more thriving and creating a team that gets better results. And I tell you what, there's a simple way to do it, and he's gonna show you how. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, hey, do me a favor and click that notification bell so that you're notified whenever I come out with a new success interview. If you're watching this on X, thank you for following me over there. I'm doing a lot more to post over at X, so I'm grateful for all that Elon Musk is doing to make it a free speech platform, if you will. And then if you're listening to it because you downloaded it from Apple Podcasts or one of the other podcast platforms, thank you for listening to the podcast and being part of my community. Now, without any further ado, let's jump right into this interview. Brian, welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast.
TJ, thank you so much for having me. What a great podcast to be on. You do so much good in this world, and I really appreciate the opportunity, so thank you.
No, hey, listen, it's a pleasure to have you on. When the publicist reached out to me, I thought, okay, first of all, leadership is crucial. And you really talk in your book, Beyond the Hammer, about what great leadership looks like. And so before we get into all the leadership principles,
Sure.
I think it would be beneficial for our audience to, hey, why don't you share with us a little bit of your background, your bio, so forth.
Certainly. So I graduated high school, barely got through high school, by the way, like a lot of young entrepreneurs. College was never my thing, right? So I went right into the workforce. In fact, my first job was selling pots and pans door to door. And I loved the excitement of knocking on a stranger's door and walking out with a check in my hand. It just was an adrenaline rush.
Totally.
Over the years, I learned that, wow, home improvements is also really cool. Pots and pans are kind of a want thing, where home improvements are more of a need thing. And I did that for many, many, many years. Eventually decided to come off of the road because, it's a lot of work, and I wanted to start my own business. Instead of making somebody else a whole lot of money, I wanted to do it for myself. So in 2009, in the back of a friend's warehouse on a plastic folding table with $3,000 in cash, I opened up my first home improvement company. And after that, we were really off to the races. It was quite the run.
We're now in these early days, were you in residential doing improvements, or was it primarily commercial? Which one?
Yeah, I focused on residential. So I would sit at Mr. and Mrs. Jones' kitchen table, go over their projects with them, figuring out what they need, want, and what they value, and come up with a price and sell them a beautiful project. And that was kind of what I did. And it's called carrying the bag in the home.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was great.
No, totally. So in the early days, were you also carrying the hammer, and were you doing a lot of the physical labor as you were?
Yeah. There was a period of time where I was also doing the physical labor. It's so interesting, by the way. I pulled out my back. I actually had to get back surgery when I was 30 something years old. I thought my career was ruined. But what it really did was it forced me into learning different skills about people, skills about business, skills about, leadership, all of these sort of things. It's so interesting. That which we think is a roadblock can often turn into being our greatest opportunity.
Yeah, and that was a blessing for you. So, question, you talk about in the beginning of the book, I don't remember how you phrase it, but you talked about a point where you had to figure out that in order for the company to survive, and I don't know if it was your company, I'm trying to go back, I read the book,
Yep.
but or if it was the parable of you had George, Marty, and Chuck, and everybody's got to go read the book because the first several chapters of the book is a pretty cool story. And I assume that parable resembles a little bit of your life. Would that be fair?
That would be very fair. Look, I've been the first part of the book is a business parable about a contractor that's really struggling with all the things that every business owner can relate to. Burnt out employees, personal burnout, frustrated customers, just chaos in your organization. But yeah, my own personal journey along that side, by the way, was that when it's just you, when it was just me as the entrepreneur, the sole owner of the business and the only employee of the business's success came down to how well I performed. Yeah. But to grow a business, you really have to commit to building teams. You have to hire people. And then all of a sudden, the business's success shifts from how well the entrepreneur can execute to how well teams execute. And by the way, that's both in the leader's presence and in their absence. So the parable really walks people through on how George had to kind of change his mindset and be a different type of leader so that he could truly run a successful business.
And he did. In the book, he totally turned it around, and it didn't take too long. He did have a mentor, Marty. And so I thought that was a pretty cool change as he started to get these aha moments,
right?
Marty kind of, and started to apply them and saw the change that happened. And there's a lot of subtle points in there that I'm sure we'll get to as we go through this interview. But my thought was, maybe just give us some thoughts on when you think about all the entrepreneurs out there that are doing it themselves, that are getting after it every day, that have tons of motivation and so forth. Do you have any thoughts or advice on scaling your business?
Yeah. That's really, really important and a great question. Like, when is it really time to scale, right? And what are the paths to scale? When you think about it, you really have four options if you're trying to grow your business. Option one is you're going to grow your existing market with whatever existing products you have, or you might take new products into an existing market, or you might take a new market with existing products, or you might go with new products in a new market. Well, there's only four ways to scale a business, but when is it time to do any of that? Look, I think what often happens is, a lot of, especially in the early days of trying to grow a business, we can all relate to, I really need to hire an office manager, or I really need to hire this individual, but I'm afraid to take on the overhead because what if I can't afford to keep that person? And, all of the organization itself is not confident in being to hit whatever forecasted sales targets or revenue targets they created. And the more confidence a business has in hitting forecasted targets, the more willing the business leader is to invest in the organization. So when is it time to scale or to open up another market or something like that? To me, it's when you're able to hit forecasted targets with a high level of confidence. Because sometimes in a small organization, you might be successful, but it's like having kids. When I have one market and it's like having one child. When I have a second market, now it's like having 10 kids. And you really figure out where the holes in your business are. And if you're not ready to do it right, it could be really detrimental to the business.
So when you started to scale, did you start with, let's say, an office manager, or did you start with maybe some sales reps? Who did you primarily start with? And is there a formula for that?
Yeah. And just to put it in context, so it was just me in 2009. In 2022, when I sold all my businesses, we were up to 600 employees and $150 million in yearly revenue. So there was a lot of hiring that had to take place. But the first hires are so important. Look, as an entrepreneur, energy is everything, right? And we have to figure out, how do we hire a way to those things that either burn us out or or we're just not simply good at, because that stuff that drains us, it takes the fuel out of us, and that we need that so much in an entrepreneurial mindset in order to grow. It's bad enough, our phone rings all night long. We can't sleep at night. We have all those other issues. So how do we hire to our weaknesses first? But when doing so, also recognize that two things. A, we might be the wrong person to onboard that person because it is our weakness. And B, we should always make sure we're giving that person, the person that has a different skill set than us, a really, really loud voice in any meeting that we have, because their opinion is going to be very different and it'll be very valuable. And then, by the way, once you get that weakness hired, then I believe the next thing to do is start to replicate your strengths, because that's an easy one. And that's how you can really start to scale.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So in the beginning days, were you stressed about the overhead that you were putting on and worried that you wouldn't be able to sufficiently keep that consistent for that person? And then maybe that person is feeling stressed because you made a poor decision, all those different thoughts that go through your mind.
Yeah, 100%. And then also, again, in the early days of business, it's not like there's a lot of money to go around, right? So how do you create highly performance-based compensation structures too? And that's just, I think, a discipline inside of an organization, because regardless of the industry you're in, there are up times and down times. And if compensation can flex with that, if overhead can flex with that, it's a very healthy discipline for any organization, and give people a much bigger upside too.
Wow. No, that's great. So 2009, now we're in 2024.
Yeah.
Toward the end of 2024, you had some pretty quick growth. And I think I read somewhere in a bio or something that someone highlighted you as one of the fastest growing companies. Who was that?
Right. It was Inc. 5000 recognized us actually 4 years in a row as one of the fastest growing companies in America, which is really, look, it was a great team. But look, ultimately, business is about, yes, you need a good strategy, but then you have to execute, right? The team has to execute, and you have to execute with consistency. And, it's interesting because we would spend a fair amount of time debating, because the concept is we want to exceed customers' expectations.
Yes.
The challenge with that is it's not measurable. How do you measure that? How much did we get it by? We want to meet expectations with consistency. That's something we can measure. And if we can measure that, we can scale that, because we can have a system and a process around that. And just something to think about if you're a business leader or a manager.
No, that's really great. In fact, you say in the book, I have a friend who started a business 18 years ago, built it into an industry leader, and is now a billionaire. I remember him telling me, with passion in his voice, quote, "Business is all about execution." And then you say, he's not alone in the thinking, and as most top performing organizations would say the same. To quote the late Mark Hurd, one of the masterminds behind Oracle, quote, "Without execution, vision is just another word for hallucination."
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That was rich to me. Anyway, reading it. So, yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So how do you align a team around what in order to get them to execute at a high level with consistency?
Yes.
Things like upset customers or managers that are stuck in crisis mode or high turnover. All of these things affect an organization's ability to execute. So we have to say, how do we get rid of all that clutter? How do we really focus on building an aligned team so that whether I can't find good help or I have high turnover, those issues just simply go away. And that's really what the book is about.
And it comes down to, I'm assuming what you're leading toward right there in your book, Beyond the Hammer, is the 5 pillars, right? And what George in the parable in the beginning kind of figured out was, it was about building a strong team, it was about building a strong culture. And there were some specific pillars that he discovered were highly important. And I'm sure,
correct,
obviously you wrote the book, so you know these pillars really well. So the first pillar, let's just go through these real quick.
Sure.
The first pillar is belief is transferable.
Correct. Belief is transferable. Now, I have to share with you where these pillars came from, and especially the first one. TJ, I had an epiphany. I literally had an epiphany. Okay. I remember the day I was sitting out on the front porch with my wife. We were drinking a glass of wine on a Sunday evening, and we would just come off of a community music festival. And we were just thinking about how when the community is doing well, we're in a better place. And how when the business is doing well, we're in a better place. And when the business isn't doing well, we're not in a better place. And that's just how it is. We're so connected to our business. And my epiphany was that for the business to reach its potential, the people inside of the business have to first reach theirs. Because the people, unless and until the people reach their potential, which means I can't reach my potential because I'm so connected to the business until the people first realize theirs. My goal, that means, what is my goal as a leader? My goal is to help everybody else reach their potential. That's my goal. And how do I do that? And that's what these 5 pillars are really all about. So yes, belief is transferable, because people have something known as FUD, which stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And look, if we're trying to expand the capabilities of everybody on our team, FUD holds people back. They don't think they can do something. They're not sure they can do it. Look, we all as human beings tend to create rules in our mind that have been fed to us through negativity. Yes. How do we break that negativity down? And what's the role of the leader to say, hey, I believe in you, and I believe in you because, and I'm confident you can do this because. And as you do that, really building their confidence in order to be set up and properly positioned to win and take on big challenges.
Love it. Stephen Covey, who wrote the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders.
Great book. Oh,
totally. And I remember many years ago, he's since passed away, but many years ago, I heard him speak, and he said, and many times when he would go speak to a large group of just executives, C-suite executives and so forth, he would ask them, his opening question often was, how many of you reached this level of success because someone in your life, in your history, believed in you?
Yeah.
And he said, every time all the hands went up in the audience. And so what you're saying is, at a local level, in a local team, in a organization, you also individually have that power as a leader to breathe life into the employees, the team members, and so forth, to build them up, to get them to believe bigger in themselves. And what you would say, and you said it in the book, is as people believe in themselves better, they perform better.
100%. And look, we naturally do it with our children. If they're struggling with homework, we don't say, well, you might as well quit. We say, well, just keep trying. We coach them and let them know, well, I know you're going to get it. Or, I use the analogy in the book about when I was a T-ball coach. And, in T-ball, they don't know how to hit a ball. They don't know how to catch a ball, but you have to encourage them all the time, because otherwise they'll never show up again. So, belief is super duper powerful, and we shouldn't just leave it with our kids. We need to bring it to us in the workplace.
And one thing we teach we have a leadership academy that has been in many companies, many well-known companies around the world. And one thing we teach is you got to reward the effort. So this is an add-on, but it's just, when you said, because you're great because, or something to that fact, that implied you were being specific, right? And one way that we can be specific and reward people at the same time is, as they're working, as they're doing their job, to be a little bit of a cheerleader, and that will give them more motivation, more belief, and so forth to keep going, right?
Correct. And the because, by the way, when you say I believe in you because, it actually helps because it provides evidence. So it's not just this hollow form of belief. Hey, I believe in you. I believe in you. But I believe in you because, and this is why I'm confident you can even continue to rise further. It really is. It breaks down FUD, and it's super important for a leader.
I love that. FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah.
Reminder. All right. So I remember interviewing several years ago Ken Blanchard, who wrote back in 1981, The 1 Minute Manager, that put him on the map, and he's written 50 books since.
Yeah. Great author.
And a great guy. I mean, just a good guy. And he told me, when I interviewed him several years ago on the podcast, he said, remember this, TJ, leadership is mirrored throughout the organization. So part of that, when I read your book, that kept going through my mind
Oh, that's
about
interesting.
pillar number one, belief is transferable, but also pillar, we won't go, let's go one at a time through this, but you're going to have one that's called
Leaders are aware of the echo of their voice, right? Is
yes,
that what you're
leaders
thinking?
are aware of the echo of their voice. So we'll get there. Let's save it.
Yeah,
We'll get
yeah,
there.
yeah. Okay.
I think that I think this is a powerful, powerful concept. So here we go. One thing you said about FUD is you say, quote, try watching your team members for signs of FUD rather than waiting for them to tell you about it. So again, FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So I love that when you said it. You tucked that in there really quick in the book, and I thought, amen, because oftentimes we see a challenge, we see someone show up at work that's maybe not on their game, something is bothering them. And oftentimes leaders are like, well, I don't want to get too personable. It's not my business or whatever. What you're teaching, what I'm trying to teach is no, we should be curious. We should find out. We should, visit with them and see what's going on and see if we can help resolve concerns or inspire them or whatever the needs may be. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, people want to know that you're invested in them, right? And that you truly care about them. It's just a whole nother way of showing belief in them, right? We are invested in people that we believe in. We're invested in people that are on our team. And again, don't wait for somebody to walk out the door, because they quit. Let's be proactive. Let's make sure that they're having a great journey at work, in the workplace, because
And one way that you, in the book, you illustrate that through the parable is there was a part where George had put out an advertisement to hire someone, and the internal team was frustrated that they weren't considered for that position before they had put it out to the external world. And what you're saying is that's a good way to, in a negative way, to transfer belief too.
Oh, let's face it, both positive and negative belief are highly transferable, right? And you're right. As you can imagine how many job postings I've had to put out to hire 600 people.
Yeah, for sure.
But I always learn that, I have to, no matter what, even if I didn't think I personally had the right candidate on my team for this role, I owe it to my team to at least first put an internal posting out first. Because if I don't, what does it really say about a career opportunity and the ability to grow inside of an organization? And if people think there's no place to grow in your business, I promise you, they'll find a business somewhere else where they can grow. And it's up to us as leaders to always create opportunity.
So I don't know what the percentage is, but just that alone could reduce the turnover.
Oh, for sure.
And if you can get people to buy into which is pillar number 2, is the purpose and the direction of the company. Woo, you get their heart involved. Oh my goodness, they will work overtime, not for a paycheck. They will work because they love the organization they work for. They love the progress they're making, the difference they're making in the company.
That's right.
So forth. So let's talk about purpose and direction, because this is critical.
Sure thing. Yeah. Pillar number 2 is the idea that leaders shape culture through purpose and direction. So let's start by what is culture, right? And it's my opinion that culture is every organization has a culture. The culture exists in every business, but culture is a shared set of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors amongst the team. How the team thinks, feels, and acts in an organization is indeed the culture of the business, whether you want it to be or not. That's what it is. And what is the leader's role and the manager's role in shaping that culture? And we do so through purpose and direction. It's important to know that your culture will be also shaped by the lowest level of acceptable behavior inside of your business. So it's very tempting, and especially early on in a business, to want to go out and hire a bunch of people with a lot of experience somewhere else and bring them into your business, maybe from a competitor. First of all, there's no guarantee they're going to be successful in your organization, because success isn't always portable. But more importantly, you then typically not only do you get their experience, you get their culture in the other organization. And all of a sudden you can have a bunch of colliding cultures in your business, and to tolerate those sort of things and not do anything about it is what your business will become. So we as leaders can shape culture through purpose and direction. Purpose being, why does the organization exist? why are we doing what we're doing here? What is the real reason we exist? And our direction is our vision statement, which is, what do we aspire to become? And how do we win? And we talk about how do we win? It's what behaviors do we want from our team that are going to get us to our aspirational goal? The more we can clearly define that for the team, the more successful of an organization you're going to have. And instead of, if your mission and vision are truly woven into the fabric of your organization and you bring it to life, you're no longer giving people a job, you're giving them a mission. And when you do that, the whole organization is on fire and things really start to take off.
Oh, I think that is very well said. I did do some research over the years. Harris Interactive Research said that only 37% said that they have a clear understanding of what their organization is trying to achieve and why. And 1 in 5 are enthusiastic about their teams and organization's goals, probably because of a lack of clarity, right?
Probably because of a lack of clarity, right? So, our mission statement was always an organization to do well and do good. And what that means is, what is the purpose of business? Why do we exist? And we exist to make a decent profit decently. And if we can make a decent profit decently, and how can everybody in the organization play a role to that? I think the other challenge is, is your mission and vision somewhere on a wall somewhere that's never really visited, or can you bring it to life inside of your organization by giving everybody in the business an opportunity to participate in it, and that they understand what their role is in achieving the ultimate goal of the business and its destination and where it's trying to go? What is their role in things? And when they really connect to that, they have purpose at work. And when they have purpose, and there are others that believe in them, good luck trying to recruit them, because it's not just about a paycheck anymore. As you said, TJ, they're showing up at work for reasons beyond a paycheck. They're showing up because they're feeling fulfilled, and that truly does come home with them into their home at night. And that's why I don't think it's either or. There's work and there's home life. I think it's truly both end. And if you can, when you can create a great work environment, I think you actually enhance the home environment as well.
Oh, agreed. Everything affects everything else. When I do executive coaching calls, I'll tell you, maybe the first call, we're talking about the business, KPIs, we're talking about the details of what's working, what's not working. By the second month, third month, fourth month, eighth month, 10th month of visiting with this person, 90% of it is personal issues. And you know what? What I hear later on is that person has changed inside the office. They're a different person because of the coaching. And it's not because we focus on the business per se. We worked on the individual.
Yeah. And they have a high level of trust in you too along that journey, because so how important is that, right? They know that your desire to help them is authentic, it's real, and you care about them and you believe in them and all of the things we've been talking about. And as a result, they want to share with you, and they're open to your coaching and development, your training.
Okay. What would you say about this? So recently I was working with a company that the last few years had produced revenue of about $1 billion. And when I started to work with them, one thing that surprised me is they did not have any clarified purpose, vision, or even values. And I thought, how is that possible that you can create such a business? And I will say, this is the 1% chance of that happening, because I'm a big believer you have to have those in place. So people, when they're coming in the company, they know what the company stands for and so forth. There's a lot of reasons, but I want your insight on this. Is we started to work on the mission, the vision and the values. And what I discovered as we went through that process, there really was a culture. Right? There was an accepted, unspoken culture. And that culture ended up being hard work. We make things happen. There were some key elements that the values were there. The purpose was there. The vision was there. It just was never identified. And so I was obviously encouraging them, hey, let's get these things written and let's get them spread throughout the organization. Any thoughts or advice that you would give to a client like that?
Yeah, look, I think that, obviously great success in revenue, right? But, who knows what sort of turnover they had along that process, right? Because typically not if it's not written down, then in many ways it doesn't exist. And or people that aren't in tune to the, to it, they feel lost, but also what was the missed revenue opportunity as well, right? Because again, an aligned team is just going to perform better. It just simply is every single time. Look, we can spend probably all day talking about great sports teams, great football teams that were stacked with talent, but didn't perform well as a team and never made it to the Super Bowl. So individual talent will get you so far, but it takes really team performance that's aligned to really win big games, in my opinion.
Well said. Well said. You get it. Now, you also mentioned in the book that when it comes to vision, that different departments can have different visions, right? So you might have a grand vision, overarching vision for the company, but specific departments and groups and teams, it's okay to have a separate specific vision. So explain that.
Yeah, it's not even just okay. Because you're right, you might have an overall vision for the business, but what does it mean to the individual teams? Because when we think about what is the purpose of the vision statement, right? It's what do we aspire to become? How do we win? So if you're whatever department, what does the department aspire to become? How does the department win? What behaviors do you want from the team members in your department? This is a great tool for aligning your team. And when you bring somebody on board, day one, they should be exposed to this, even during the interview process, to make sure there's full alignment, but it will just save you a whole lot of aggravation later on. And the other advantage to a team-specific vision statement is, look, when you have to sit down and you have a coaching session with somebody, managers can talk about KPIs, and those are super important. But by having something documented about the proper behaviors expected, your conversation widens from beyond KPIs to how behaviors are aligning. I use the example, by the way, of in the sales, say two different options. We have a high-performing sales rep that's a horrible culture fit, right? So organizations often isolate that person. Well, I don't think you can have an aligned team when part of the people on the team are isolated. Yeah. But then you have this, the high culture fit, low performer. In the sales world, it's the person you love, but they can't even close a car door. And so allowing those two things to happen are a big challenge for the organization. By having a vision statement, you can actually start coaching up behaviors more than just KPIs in both of those situations.
And the results will follow.
The results will follow, and your team will know what you expect as a leader. And that's always a good thing. Clarity.
Yes, clarity is the key. 5 ways to shape a company culture with purpose and direction. Let's just go through these quickly. Number 1, and just add anything. I'll pause each time, and you can add anything if you want to. Number 1, start with onboarding. So the key is when you bring someone in the company, I think Tony Hsieh of Zappos did a great job with this when he was building Zappos, when he would give, after the 2-week onboarding process, a $2,000 check for you to leave company if you couldn't fit into our culture, kind of.
Yeah.
Right? That spoke volumes. And
amazing.
The onboarding process. Yes.
Amazing. But you're right. It starts with onboarding because that sets the stage for everything else, right? And I've personally made the mistake, by the way, of hiring a bunch of people, putting them out in the field immediately, and then coming up with these issues that should have been addressed on day one. So we just made a decision that every day starts with onboarding. Mission, vision, culture, opportunity, all of that, regardless of the role, no matter how big or how small of a role it might be. So
love it, love it, love it. Number 2, create an awards program. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think that it's easy to want to celebrate the top performing sales rep in a business, or the top performing producer in an organization, and that's great, and it's usually one of them, right?
Yeah.
But if your mission and vision are meaningful, right, and if that's important to you, then you should celebrate those sort of things as well. And the advantage is you're not limited to just one difference maker. You can have 10 difference makers in your business if you have a large company. So celebrating the behaviors that you see as important beyond just KPIs is, once again, it brings your mission and vision to life. It's not something just stuck on a wall.
Love it. And more people are involved and can participate in that and make
100%.
it. Number 3, weave the mission into your conversations. I think there's a lot of research around this.
Yeah. So again, if it's a simple mission like do well and do good, if and I read about this in the book, if one of our installers changed Mrs. Jones's smoke detector batteries while they happen to be in the home replacing a window, we have to celebrate that. We have to recognize them. We have to say, way to really do good, way to do well and do good. Weaving your mission and vision or pieces of your vision statement into daily conversations, it creates, it's like Starbucks, right? You go into Starbucks, and if you want to order anything from Starbucks, you have to speak Starbuckian to do so, right? You have to venti, mocha, frappuccino. You have to speak their language, and you're kind of making Starbucks makes the customer a co-producer. So how do you make your team a co-producer in accomplishing your mission and vision? Well, one way is to bring the conversation to life, make it part of our daily talk.
Love it. Love it. Number 4, review team members according to the vision statement, which is the behaviors expected.
Yeah, which we just talked about. That's right. Exactly. It's not just KPIs. It's how are their behaviors aligning. You have that high performer, low culture fit. It's, hey, you're hitting all your KPIs. That's great. Let's talk about some behaviors that we need you to address so we can come up with an action plan on how to do that. Because it's much better than isolating people.
Yes, it is. And the last one, number 5, use causes marketing to develop the culture. Explain that.
Oh, my near and dear to my heart is cause marketing. I just love it. It's how do you really make a positive impact in this world as a business? It's do well is the financial gains and all those sort of things, but do good. How do we give back? And look, I'll give you 2 quick examples. One example was we put a lot of showers in people's homes over the years, and it's a joyful business. And it's a sad business because you see a lot of sadness out there. In fact, we ran across a lot of veterans that have served our country proudly, but now because of mobility issues, they are literally petrified to try to take a shower in their own bathroom because they have a bathtub that trying to step over it is dangerous. And we all know that a fall in the shower can lead to a life-changing injury. But we can do something about that. So we created this program called Baths for the Brave, where we surprise veterans with free bath projects once a year, just in time for Veterans Day. Yeah, so far since we've launched it, last year we were in 31 different states with it by like-minded home improvement companies participating in it. We're in about the same this year. But the cool thing about it is everybody in the organization wants to meet that veteran and participate in it or volunteer their time to do the installation or bring donuts the day of the bath crash or organize the high school music band to come out on their front lawn and celebrate them. It's really cool. You can bring your mission and vision to life. The other program we put together was Windows for a Cause. In the window business, you typically put new windows in people's houses and you take the old windows out and you just throw them in the trash. Mm-hmm. We started working with local artists and community members, and we'd give these old window sashes to them, and we'd have them turn them into beautiful art pieces. And then, in fact, over my shoulder right there, there's one of you can kind of see the wheel of a motorcycle there, right there. That's one of the art pieces. We would have all these cool art pieces, and once a year, we would auction these art pieces off, and all the money raised would go to make a positive impact in the life of another individual in the community. But everybody in the business participated in it. The installer participated in it, the sales team. Again, the cause marketing is, when done properly, oh yeah, there you go. Windows for a Cause. Yeah. So we actually set a Guinness World Record one year for the most amount of displayed windows. We could do a whole podcast on what it's like cold calling Guinness, by the way.
Love it. Oh, this is great. This is great. So, okay, pillar number 3, we talked about it for a split second earlier. Leaders are aware of the echo of their voice. I think this is huge when we think about communication and we think about how things might come across. Being aware of the decisions you make, the reactions you take, and so forth are critical as a leader. Please explain.
TJ, how often do you run across organizations, right? And especially if you're getting into an organization when things aren't going as planned inside of that business, and the leader is stressed out and they're angry and all of that kind of stuff, and they wear it on their sleeves, right? And what happens is people on your the people on your team are going to decide what kind of day they're going to have based on the type of day that the leader is having. If the leader is going to be stressed out and comes across stressed out, and the team is going to be, they're going to be afraid to talk to you. They're going to not want to add more stress. Or if they think you're angry, they're going to keep their head under their desk. I've seen this over and over and over again. And, the truth is that leaders don't get to have bad days. Look, I'm sure if somebody's having a bad day, they can pick up the phone and call you, TJ. They can pick up the phone and call me, dump on me all day long. In front of your team, your echo matters, and not just your spoken words, but even your actions, not dealing with that low culture fit that's a high performer, not responding to an email that's urgent by somebody on your team. Or here's one that I think we're all guilty of: simply not being present, right? We're on this awesome podcast right now. Imagine for a minute if I said, "Hey, TJ, my phone is ringing. I got to take this call real quick." And I'm taking a call, or I'm texting somebody while I'm on a podcast with you. You'd be like, "Brian, what the heck are we doing here? We're on a podcast, man." But yet we do that all the time, and we're with people. And that sends a horrible echo. And you know what? We can do better than that. We need to be present.
Yeah, you say here on page 64 of your book, talking about Amelia's, as part of the parable portion of the book, Amelia's social media post. She was frustrated that it had been taken down. And it turns out that George, her dad, took it down. And the reason, and what you say here is, quote, "Choose your words carefully because they reverb."
Correct. Your words reverb throughout the entire organization, and your actions. All of that stuff, it sends a massive reverb. We as leaders get to decide what that reverb is.
And I would just remind the audience, right? You have words, you have tone of voice, and you have physiology. Well, the research shows that physiology, the way we move our body, the way we react, our facial expressions and so forth, represent 56% of our communication. And so controlling that, having some self-control, I think it goes back to pillar number one, which is belief is transferable, right? If you're inconsistent as a leader, and one day you're happy and the next day you're unhappy or you're stressed or whatever, and you're bleeding that energy out to everybody else, it's not a good thing if we're trying to stay aligned, which is what you talk about a lot in the book, is being aligned, is being synergistic, is being
Correct.
a true, authentic team. The leader has to rise above the fray to some degree and be that best person possible.
When you think about, word choice is one thing, but very important point you made is if facial and body expressions, body language is so. Look, I'm going to say the same thing, and I'm going to answer it with saying it two different ways. She wore a wedding ring. I thought she was married, right? It's a question. She wore a wedding ring. I thought she was married. It takes on two different meanings based on how we say it. So we have to be very careful on the words we choose, and more importantly, the way we present information to our team.
I'll just add one for fun because you did it just now. You can say, "I love you," is different than "I love you," or "I love you." It makes it
exactly
totally the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So noticing those tones, those words, the body language is going to be critical. Okay, pillar number 4, leaders model their business as a training organization. When I read that, I thought, okay, this is my heart. This is what I've been doing for 25 years outside of companies, if you will, but being called in. So what is your thought about companies becoming training organizations?
Look, if providing we agree that we're in the business to build a business, we have to commit to building people, right? That means that we have to, then what is the business we're really in? Look, when I started my business in 2009 on a plastic folding table, if you'd have asked me what business I was in, I would have said, well, we're a construction company. Once I got up to like 30 sales reps, I would have said, well, we're a sales and marketing company that happens to be in home improvements. But what really allowed us to grow and really get to, 100 sales reps is we had to model our business as a training organization. As long as I'm going to make a prediction, TJ, we're doing this podcast in 2024. So if somebody looks at it in 2025, here's my prediction. There will be a labor shortage in the construction industry. There has been a labor shortage as long as I know. So do we be held hostage to the rules that are created, or do we just break the rules? Do we say, how do I not worry about a labor shortage? How do I build people? How do I train and develop people? But because look, the goal, ultimately, I believe the goal is, if we have a choice. We're either going to build our business through policies, we're going to control the result through policies, or we're going to build a team that's empowered. If we choose empowerment, then we have to train people so they can make great decisions, recognizing that they might make some bad decisions along the way, and it's okay to be wrong. Just don't be wrong for long. But you have to teach them what it means to be right. In other words, you have to be a training organization.
Love it. Clayton Christensen, who has since passed away, but he was a Harvard in the business school professor, and he wrote a number of kind of innovative books and so forth. He said, and I'm going to use your language right here, so it's a little bit different than what he said, but he says processes will only bring your satisfaction at work up to a certain level, but it won't go beyond that, right? Right. How much your paycheck is, how much time do you get off, what time do you have to be in at work, what time do you have to leave? All those rules and policies around all those things will only bring you up to a satisfactory level. What he says in his writings is that to really get people to grow and to feel involved and so forth, and to feel a deep sense of purpose for what they're doing, you have to, he says it's called motivation factors, which is growing and progressing and recognition, growing and progressing and recognition. And I think when you empower people, that's the word you use, I think you're right. The leaders who have the vision for empowering believe in the people.
That's right.
They believe that, hey, it's my job to help coach them and help them. And this is tough for oftentimes mid-level managers. You have high-performing employees that, because they were high-performing employees, they're the great match for a new leadership position. And then they get in that new leadership position, but they're not training the people around them like a mentor would to bring them up to the skill level they had that drove them to that next position in the company. And there's myriad of reasons why people don't do it. But just for the sake of this, great leaders are empowering their people. They see the value of their people. And if someone doesn't understand something, they take the time to train it with kindness and with respect and so forth until that person gets it. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, well, and to your point, when you solve a problem in isolation, you're actually robbing somebody of a great training opportunity. Nobody learns anything when you're solving a problem by yourself. Everything in a business can be a training organization, a training opportunity. And when you do so, again, people understand that you're committed to developing them and building bench strength and growing people. Only great things will come from that. We just have to, but we should know that in a training organization, there's really one key rule, and that's if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. So having documented processes, even if they're not perfect, just get something written down, start somewhere, and then start training people on it. Because otherwise, look, being the bottleneck is a tough way to grow a business. And I've been there myself, and I've learned how to not be that anymore.
And did you find that you had to make a shift in just trusting other people, trusting that they could develop those skills and so forth, and then pick up on maybe some of your weaknesses and so forth, and make
that's right. I had to trust in others, and but I also had to put in the hard work. I had to say, well, look, if I'm going to be a training organization, what does that mean? How am I going to measure it? How am I going to implement it? How am I going to innovate it? All of those sort of things. How do I know it's effective? So, but I do believe that if you're in a scaling business, you are a training organization.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Pillar number 5, managers need a checklist. I like you talked about it already. You didn't specify it, but your culture fit / performance Foursquare. Right. I think that's right. In fact, 89. I want to show the image on the screen because I think it's good for people to see.
Right.
So when you get Brian's book, there's going to be this four square or this matrix, if you will, and then the next page looks like that. Explain the four square real quick, will you?
Sure. Well, if you put on one side culture fit and the other side performance, right? And low and high. And so essentially you have four options. You have a low culture fit, low performer. You have a high culture fit, high performer. You have a high culture fit, low performer. And you have a low culture fit, high performer, if you could follow that. Okay. But look, the two easiest boxes to deal with, and people fit in all those boxes, in various boxes. The low culture fit, low performer, well, that's an easy one. You're probably not going to give them much time, and you're going to have them be successful somewhere else outside of your company. Right. The high performer, high culture fit is easy too. That's who you promote. But that's not where managers spend all their time. They're dealing with the high performer, low culture fit, or the high culture fit, low performer. That's where managers get bogged down. And look, you mentioned it earlier, TJ, that putting a manager in a role because they were successful as an individual. I too have made that mistake where putting somebody in a role simply because they had the most amount of experience, regardless of their capabilities or passion for developing, for mentoring, and for coaching. So, and also what happens in an organization, as a business grows, if you think about what is the role of the manager, right? The role of the manager is essentially they're the ones doing the hiring, firing, promoting, compensating. In many ways, they're the custodian of the company's culture, which means they affect how people think, feel, and behave inside of an organization. How they do that will determine the effectiveness of a team and the performance of the organization. So managers often get put into roles without any real formal training. They're just assigned a manager. You're a manager. Congratulations. Exactly. We're setting them up for failure. We're a training organization. We better have a model on how to train managers. And that's what the 10 practices of high performing managers is. And it's in the book, and it's very actionable, as you know, because you read it.
Yeah, I did read it. In fact, I'll just say a few of them. The 10 practices of top performing managers. Number 1 is an effective coach and mentor. Number 2, leads the team vision statement. Number 3, practices empowerment. Number 4, communicates effectively. Number 5 is KPI focused and accountable. Number 6, discuss his performance and the employee's performance and career development. That does not happen enough inside companies, I think.
Correct.
Number 7, keep a learning mindset, growing, have a reason to grow, right? That's where more of the happiness, the progress, the recognition, all that stuff is going to make you happier, find more bliss at work. Collaborates with other business units. How many times have you noticed in your career? I know I've noticed it in mine, that departments can get frustrated with each other because of a lack of understanding why certain departments are doing things other ways. You have the sales department upset with the accounting department, and the accounting department saying they promised too many things over here at the sales department, right?
All the time.
Number 9, embraces continual process improvement. Absolutely. We have to do that. And then I love this one. It's huge. We don't do it enough. And before I even say it, I'm going to say, leaders, you may not need it because you might get your recognition through your own efforts, and getting results might be enough for you. But our research shows about 70% of the employees out there need praise, that praise pays. And you say number 10, praise performance publicly. And I think that's really healthy. Any thoughts on any of those?
Yeah. And, just taking that last one, when you can do it publicly, and we used to do a couple of things, right? We might celebrate something publicly with our team, but also just a handwritten note. Let's say the husband is working hard in the field doing installations in the construction industry. A nice handwritten note to the wife saying how much you appreciate him and what a great job he's doing, and it goes way beyond. It has a massive ripple effect because if you can get full buy-in in the family as well, it's significant. Super helpful.
Totally agree. I was working with a publicly traded company, and I was working with one of the vice presidents doing some executive coaching stuff. And he says, you're not going to believe it. The CEO gave me a compliment today. He goes, I will hang on to that compliment for a year. It will last a year. Yeah. And I thought, how sad is that? How sad that the compliments coming from the leader aren't regular enough, catching people when they're doing things right, rewarding the effort, whatever it is, in an effort to bring more belief to the company, to the process, to our organization, your efforts to help you believe more in yourself. It's not happening enough that you get one compliment a year, and that's the only compliment you're going to get for the year, that it's going to have that much of an impact. It should be normal for people to cheer on each other. Any thoughts?
Look, in any relationship, right? We want, what do we want? We want to feel valued and appreciated, right? That's a big driver for people. In a work relationship, people want to feel valued and appreciated, like they're making a difference and they're being noticed for that effort. And public praise does that.
It does. All right. We're winding down.
Yep.
What a great book. I read it. I enjoyed it. Easy to read. You can sit down in a couple hours and read this thing and enjoy it because you put so many nuggets in it. So many good leadership, supervisory management nuggets in it that are useful, that people can apply right away. And you'll walk away being inspired that there's a better way to do it. All right.
Brian, thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job. And yes,
real quick plug on this, okay? If you love audiobooks, all right, the audiobook is over the top, and I'm going to tell you why. Again, the second half of the book is strategy. I read that part, but I wanted a really, really cool storyteller to read The Parable.
Yes.
Eduardo Ballerini. He's a world famous narrator. He used to be an actor on The Sopranos. He reads like James Patterson books and all kinds of really cool books. He read The Parable, and he just brings this parable to life in a way that's fantastic. So get the hard copy, download the audiobook. I promise you'll truly enjoy it. And TJ, I really appreciate you having me on this show, by the way. Thank you.
Well, tell them. No, you've been absolutely. And I love your energy, by the way. So how can people get the book? I assume anywhere books are sold. I mean,
yeah. So it's in, certainly you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that. I think next month it's going to be at the airports and the center tables there, but don't wait. Go to Amazon and grab it. But the audiobook, Audible, Apple, Audio, just wherever books are sold, essentially. Yep.
No, right. You were great. Listen, Brian, I appreciate you being on the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast.
Thank you.
You brought the energy, you brought the positivity, and you have the results to back it up. And I always appreciate that when we bring guests on. So you're the man. Thank you.
I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
You bet.